Hello, and welcome to Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We are your hosts, Cody Norman
and Logan Frye, paralysis recovery specialist at the Perfect Step, also known as TPS.
We are not doctors and are not prescribing anything, as this podcast is for informational purposes and should not be considered legal advice.
We are, however, sharing knowledge and experience that we have gained from working for years with clients in the paralysis community.
The guests on this podcast will include either experts in their respective fields or individuals sharing their unique experiences with paralysis.
Suggestions and advice that we share may affect each person differently, as not one injury or diagnosis is the exact same.
We are hopeful that the outreach of this podcast will allow us to give help and guidance for individuals suffering from paralysis.
We understand that this spread of knowledge is important and takes an entire community coming together.
Because of this, we would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors who have made this possible. Welcome back to episode 10 of Pathways to Healing. On this episode, we have on Christie Tomashek, a paralysis recovery assistant at the Perfect Step who has been working as a caregiver in the field for 11 years.
Christie has worked with quadriplegic clients, paraplegic clients, and stroke clients as a caregiver. Stay tuned on Christie's Pathways to Healing to find out how her caregiving shifted her into wanting to be an assistant at the Perfect Step. All right, everybody, welcome back to Pathways to Healing. We're on episode 10. We have Christie Tomashek as a guest today. Welcome, Christie.
Hey, guys.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Love to be here.
It's good to have you here, Christie. Christie, maybe we can just open up the floor a little bit for you to talk about your background, maybe where you're from, and just kind of go from there and explain a little bit about also how you became a caregiver.
Born and raised in Upland, California, and always knew that I wanted to help. Well, when I was little, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to help dogs. But then I transitioned to wanting to help people and went to school initially to become a police officer.
Really?
Yes. And I knew a lot of police officers at the time, and they were kind of bitter toward people because they deal with the worst people. And so that made me think twice about going into that field. So I wanted to give other things a shot before I actually went into that field. And I took an EMT class and realized that I'd rather not have that mindset and of maybe being bitter towards the human race, because I actually just want to help them. And when I took the EMT class, I really enjoyed it. But they also didn't deal with patients or clients in a personal level. So I finished that training at UCLA Extension, and then I went on to go to a certified nursing assistant course, and I finished that and worked in hospitals and interned first, and I really enjoyed it. So that's when I knew that a more intimate setting with patients or clients would be what is right for me. And so as a CNA, my first job as a CNA was at Casa Colina, working with SCI clients, brain injuries, and stroke clients, also other populations.
Was all this before or after your undergraduate? And where did you do your undergrad? And what was it in?
I did my undergraduate at UC Irvine in criminology. So this was after.
Okay, so you did your undergrad in criminology while you were thinking you were going to be a police officer.
Yes.
And then after that realized maybe not the route for me and went into the CNA program?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, I went into the EMT program first.
EMT and then
Yes.
CNA?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went and started at Casa Colina?
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience like there?
It was great. Working with spinal cord injuries, rehabilitation setting. Right away, I fell in love with it. Fell in love with the people, and it was just what I knew I was meant to be. Meant to work with people in that community, and I wanted to be a nurse, but I had a few step backs. So, yeah.
What was the major difference between you being an EMT and then you going to Casa Colina and then being a CNA during that time. What do you feel like was the major differences and what were the similarities?
Well, starting out as an EMT, you're just like transporting people to the hospital, so it's not really like you're not getting to know people, you're not really helping them in a sense. I wanted to be more involved in like their care, and that was just how I've always been as a person, just like wanting to like help people and be involved in their care. And as an EMT, you're kind of doing that, but not like as close as you are in a hospital setting.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit because you said veterinarian at first, and that...
When I was little, I was like
Yeah, okay.
in elementary school.
Okay.
I just loved dogs, so I just
Yeah.
wanted to take care of dogs.
Okay. It sounds like you just have a love for beings, like things that are alive.
I just like to take care of things. I always have.
Yeah. That's awesome. And do you feel like that also correlates to you as a mom? Like, do you feel like you being
I
able
think like just being involved in that kind of like community and care, like that helped me be the mom that I am. Just because I've always taken care. I've taken care of people for almost 12 years, and like as a certified nursing assistant and a caregiver, and here at TPS. So it has helped me be patient and caring and just like involved as a mom.
That's awesome. So you've been CNA for 12 years now, and you've been working in multiple jobs, but now currently you work as what we call recovery assistant here at TPS, right?
Yes.
Can you explain people what your job role is as a assistant?
As an assistant at The Perfect Step, I assist the specialists in what they need. I help with setups, and I help clients like be comfortable and just help with whatever you guys are needing at that time.
And me and Logan were both assistants before we became specialists, and it's a very different position, not because of the amount that you're doing, but because you have the ability to go through the building and you get to stay close and connected with all of the clients, and you can still keep up on what everybody's doing versus me and Logan. You know, we have a one-on-one session, so we're pretty confined to being able to keep up to date with our client. Is that something that you really like about the job?
Yeah, I really like to just like get to know people and help them and get to know their stories and know what they like and always do that for them and know what you guys need for specific clients and always try to be on top of everything.
But you do a really great job of being on top of everything.
She
and,
does.
You know, you and along with other assistants that we've had definitely in the past and present, I think that it is a tough job, and I feel like you guys are the glue that holds us together, because if we didn't have you guys, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the lifts that we do. We wouldn't be able to have all of the setups that we do for our clients. So there's so many different aspects that come along with that job role that you have.
Yes.
How long have you been a full-time assistant for? Did you start off as part-time?
I was full-time. I started in 2018 after I worked at Casa Colina, and I worked there for a year, and then I became like a private caregiver for a paraplegic that used to be a client of mine at Casa Colina. I was just working for him while I was going to nursing school, and then I came back here sometime in 2021. I think I've been here for maybe 2 or 3 years again.
So to give a full kind of understanding, you've been CNA, EMT, personal caregiver, worked at a hospital in the setting of the paralysis community, and worked at a private paralysis recovery center as an assistant to the community. Can you describe how those experiences of being a caregiver, working in the hospital setting and working in the private sector have all been unique but also different?
Yes. So working at a hospital, you mostly help with ADLs, activities of daily living. So you're helping, depending on when you work. I worked the night shift, afternoon, evening shift. So I helped with feeding and bedtime care. So sometimes showers, sometimes just changing them and just putting them in bed, stretching them if they need to be stretched, just different things. It depends on the person. Like every single person is different and needs different care. So that's what I did at a hospital setting, as opposed to here. We're just trying to help them with independence and getting going and being motivated, and but I also bring care to them. I always try to make everyone comfortable.
Yeah, which you do a really good job of. Yeah, and so when you went from the transition from being a CNA into being an assistant, were you juggling those two things at the same time as a CNA and assistant, or did you stop at Casa Colina and only work at TPS for that time?
Yeah, I stopped at Casa Colina in 2018, and I started at Perfect Step like within the month after I stopped working.
Pretty much right away. Okay.
And were you a caregiver at the same time as either or both of those?
I am now. When I first started working at TPS, I was just working at TPS.
Just working at TPS, and now
I'm doing both.
Now you're doing both, and you're a caregiver for a quadriplegic.
Yes.
And so you've been a caregiver for a paraplegic and a quadriplegic. Can you, first, can you give just a generic background of what being a caregiver entails? Yeah,
it depends on the person. A lot of caregivers are caregivers for elderly people. That's the main agency. If people go through agencies, it's mostly for elderly people. For me, I've always worked with just SCIs and stroke clients. I worked for a stroke client too. So it's different. Everyone's different. It depends on the client. So some people need help just in the mornings, just getting up, getting out of bed, doing their bowel care, doing their showering, getting dressed. And sometimes it's at night where you're getting them into bed if they take showers at night, doing their bowel care at night. It depends on the client. Everyone's different.
What has your experiences been? Because you've done a paraplegic and a quadriplegic. How have those been, similar or different?
For a lot of paras, I know that they do their own bowel care, but the one that I worked for, he was not able to do his own. So it was really kind of the same thing with the paraplegic that I worked for as the quadriplegic also. So it's really the same kind of care. I cared for him in the morning. The paraplegic, I did his bowel care, I did his shower. He was able to shower himself. The quadriplegic is not really able to shower completely by himself. He does a lot of it, but not all of it. And so the para can do more than the quad.
Okay.
When you say do more, do you mean as far as upper extremity goes? Because as we know, quads are affected 4 limbs.
Right, yeah. So just washing himself, upper body, lower body. Right. They can the paraplegic is able to wash themselves, the quadriplegic not so much.
Right, okay.
The Be Perfect Foundation is not just a name, it's a promise. A promise to individuals living with paralysis that they are not alone in their journey. Founded by Hal Hargrave Jr. in 2007, after his own life-altering accident, we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization dedicated to providing direct financial and emotional aid. Inspired by a quote from the movie Friday Night Lights, we believe that being perfect is about doing everything you can, especially for yourself, your family, and your friends. With nearly $10 million raised and a 100% volunteer staff, your support goes directly to those in need. We assist with medical supplies, wheelchairs, home adaptations, and exercise-based therapy programs. Our board of directors receives no salary, ensuring that almost every dollar donated makes a real impact. Visit BePerfectFoundation.org to donate or learn how you can get involved. The Be Perfect Foundation, changing perceptions daily.
So what would you say is the main difference between being a CNA and being a caregiver, let's say for somebody that is a quadriplegic, and their injury levels are very similar?
It's kind of the same. It depends on when you're working as a CNA in a hospital setting. You might be doing the same things. You might be getting them out of bed and you're not doing their bowel care as a CNA. Usually it's an LVN or a nurse that does bowel cares at hospitals.
Got it.
So as a caregiver, I do bowel cares. Usually it's an LVN though. So that's really the only difference. But otherwise, we do the same kind of things.
Oh, interesting. So do you feel like being a CNA influenced you to want to be a caregiver one day?
Yeah. Well, the paraplegic that I worked for, he just asked me to work for him when he got out of Casa Colina. So that's how I became a caregiver, and I liked it better than being in a hospital.
Yeah. Did you ever picture yourself being a caregiver? Or let's say, how long you been doing it for?
Almost 12 years.
Almost 12 years. Wow. Let's say 15 years ago. Did you ever picture yourself ever being a caregiver for
Probably
somebody?
not.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Just something that I fell in love with once I got my CNA.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think me and Cody ever pictured ourselves being a paralysis recovery specialist when we were 5 years old. That wasn't our dream goal, you know? So, but look at us now.
Yeah.
And happy to be here.
Yeah, exactly. And we absolutely enjoy it and adore it. And we're lucky to have you as an assistant, too. Yeah. So,
What advice would you give to a caregiver who's new to the scene of caregiving? I feel like a lot of the times caregivers for the process community are family members or loved ones who may not have signed up for that type of job like you did, going through the CNA and then being a caregiver. For somebody who got forced into the scene, as a sense, what advice would you give to them?
I would tell them that they need to take care of themselves first before taking care of their loved ones, because you can't take care of someone if you're not taking care of yourself. And it's hard to do that. Sometimes I can't. I don't even do that. I need to take my own advice. But it's hard. It's hard. And especially for them. And when people try to find caregivers, it's also hard because caregivers aren't trained to work with spinal cord injuries or brain injuries or stroke clients. They're trained to work. Their internships are in nursing homes. So that's what they're working with, older people who are just, and so they don't have any experience. And so that's why it's hard for people to find people, and then they just end up taking care of their loved ones, and that's hard. So they need to take care of themselves first. What
is the main difference you think of caregiving for an elderly individual who has a lack of independence versus somebody with a neurological injury who also has a lack of independence?
It's different. It's because their bodies are different. Their bodies work different. They need specific care. It's like elderly people need specific care, and people with SCIs need specific care. So it's all different. And it's all like with experience. It's not really trainable. You have to get in there and you have to have experience. That's the main thing.
Well, that's why we have you, right? You have the experience. So is there any particular thing that you've learned from all that experience that you would give to somebody who...
If I was like rich, I would own a caregiving company that would train people to work with SCIs specifically, or traumatic brain injury, cerebral palsy, stroke clients. Like, I would just have that so I could train them how to work with those people. Because when people are trying to find caregivers, I've heard a lot of stories of them just not being good at what they're doing. And I don't understand that.
Do you think that's more of a lack of like being educated on how to do the job of caregiving?
Like training, and then sometimes you don't have to have any training to work at some agencies or some hospitals, and I feel like you have to have training, not just for elderly people, but for every community of people who are in a hospital.
Yeah.
You have to go. I feel like caregivers or CNAs should go through a lot of different internships, not just working at a nursing home, but working at a hospital in different floors and different departments.
Definitely. I think there's a difference between being thrown into the fire without having any prior experience, and then at that point in time, it's almost like ignorance is bliss, because they don't know what they don't know, right? They're being thrown into the fire and being a caregiver for maybe a para or quadriplegic, and they have no idea how to do a bowel program or no idea how to cath somebody. Right. So that's got to be a frustrating experience for somebody. So hopefully, ideally, in the future, there continues to be more places like you're talking about where somebody can feel like they're trained properly in order to do their job to the best of their ability and have that confidence to do so.
That you know of, is there any organizations?
Not that I know of, and I've looked things up to see if that even exists, and as far as I know, there's not.
Okay.
And I just wish that there was, because it's needed.
Yeah.
especially like I've heard really bad stories from clients just having really bad caregivers, and it's not a job that pays a lot of money. So why are some people doing it is my question. Because
I think when Jenna talked about caregivers, that's actually of the medical field, that's the individuals who make
there's
the
a lot
least
of
switch.
jobs that pay the same amount or even more that don't have to deal with a human being's well-being, and people just do it for a job, and it's not something you should do for just a job.
You should have a passion of helping people, like you're saying, because when you're doing it just for a job, if you're going to just collect a paycheck and be there,
it's not okay.
And it's not healthy for you or the individual who's relying on you to go about their daily lives. We have a lot of clients who, they say the same thing. My caregiver really doesn't care, or doesn't know, or doesn't do these things. And not only that, but I think we have a lot of individuals who are in our facility who have trouble finding caregivers.
Yeah, the important thing about being a caregiver is getting to know the person you're working with and what they like and what they don't like, and doing that for them, because it's your job to do it.
Individualistic.
Because everyone's different. Everyone needs different care. Everyone prefers different things, and you should get to know that and do that for them.
So,
and it's a simple thing, but a lot of people don't do it because they just consider it a job, and it's not just a job, it's a person.
Yeah.
It is, and that person relies on you every single day to, I know you get there pretty early to give care to your individual every single day at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, whatever time it is. If you're not there, they don't know what they're going to do. They can't go about their day. They rely on you every single day.
Right.
And so it's your responsibility every single day to be there.
Yes.
That's what a lot of people would say is a very large burden. Knowing that and you dealing with that, along with you having another job and being a mother and a wife and all these other things, how would you advise other individuals in a similar position to avoid burnout? Because I think that's a large thing in that community.
Yes, it is. It definitely is. You have to listen to your body. If you need rest, you rest. You have to. Even if you're a person who's just like always on the go, like I am. I don't really sit down very often, but I need to. And you just need to listen to your body. If you're tired, you're tired. Take a nap. Go to sleep early. Don't do, like, if you need to clean later. You need to listen to your body. You need to take care of yourself. You need to do things for you too, not just for the person that you're caring for. You need to also take care of yourself.
Christie, give us a little bit. I love that. That's a great answer. That's fantastic advice. And that goes along for everybody that people aren't caregivers too, just for everybody in any field. Yeah.
Because you can be burnt out in any field.
No, definitely. Yeah, and everybody needs a little bit of a physical rest and maybe even like a mental reset sometimes in a self-care day.
Yes.
Right? So what do you feel like helps you to make sure that you don't reach that burnout? Like, other than the rest and other than you sitting down and maybe hanging out with your son and also your husband, what other things do you feel like helps you out with that?
I just like get my nails done. Yeah, just little things like that. Take a workout class. Just get away for a little bit.
Love it.
That's interesting that you say a way that you get away from the physical draining is doing a workout.
Right. Like a run every day.
You go on a run every day.
That I have is
but I think a lot of people.
That's what my me time is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't understand that can be a thing too. That a way to give yourself rest can be a form of physical activity. I know Logan's a big weightlifting guy. I love to do yoga. And in a way, that is our way of resting and getting a reset, right? It might not be as much on the physical side as it is the mental side, but when I do yoga and I get that reset where all I'm thinking about is what I'm doing with my body and the breathing, or Logan goes to the gym and he goes through a weightlifting session and all he's thinking about is lifting the weight, or you go on a run and all you're thinking about is running or resetting.
Your mind,
Yeah. That's a good way to reset, definitely. So I want you to maybe explain a little bit about a brief explanation of your day. Let's start with, you wake up in the morning. What's the very first thing you do all the way until the end of your shift, maybe at TPS?
Well, I wake up as late as I possibly can. So I only take like 10 to 15 minutes to get ready because I need my sleep.
Sleep is important. Yeah.
Because my baby does not let me sleep, so I have to.
He's almost 3?
He's almost 3, yes. And he doesn't want to sleep without me there, so I have to hold his little hand and help him through the night. So I sleep in as long as I can. Wake up, get ready, 15 minutes, and get on the road to the person that I caregive for. I work there for 3 hours, and then I usually work at TPS for 6 to 7.
Walk us through that 3 hours. What is it like to get an individual who is reliant on you to get ready for their day? What does that process start? Like, are you waking them up like physically?
Yeah.
Are you his alarm?
Yes.
And what time do you get there?
Between 5:45 and 6:15.
Wow.
Anytime between then,
Mm-hmm.
whatever he needs for that particular day. Every other day he does bowel care. So if it's not a bowel program day, I just get him up, get him dressed. Well, I get him dressed first in bed. I wake him up, get him dressed, get him out his chair. His wife does his hair and stuff like that. And I just help her out, and then I do stuff, and then we get him in the car and off to work. And then I help his wife with stuff around the house for the rest of the time that I'm there. And then I come to TPS for 6 to 7 hours. It depends on the day.
You go straight from his house to TPS?
Yes.
Okay. And then you get to TPS, and for all the listeners who don't know, describe what your day is like as an assistant.
As an assistant at TPS, we help with setups, we help with lifts, we help with whatever the specialist needs. We get clients on the table, off the table, onto different equipment.
You get to bounce around, talk to all the
Mhm.
clients, check
Get
in.
to know clients.
What's your favorite part about being an assistant and why?
I just really like to get to know everyone and their stories, and I just like to help them.
Are you somebody who you like to know people's stories about how they were injured or?
I don't ask, but I will. I'll listen if they want to tell
Want to
me
share.
about it. Yeah.
Okay. You get off at 4, 5, 6 o'clock.
hmm
What's next?
Then I go home and I take care of my baby. I feed him, I play with him, and give him a bath and help him to sleep. And then afterward, I clean and then shower, and then I go to sleep eventually.
What time you usually go to bed then?
Oh, I don't even know. It depends.
Depends on the
If
day.
he goes to sleep right away, I can sleep by 10. If he doesn't, maybe midnight, which is not good. But
How do you feel like being a mother? Because being a mother is like being a superhero. That's how I see it. How do you feel like being a mother helped you in regards to your career and to your job and what you do?
Are you in the retail, restaurant, hospitality, or petroleum industry? Looking for a trusted partner with your multi-site remodel, refresh, or tech integration needs? Look no further. Apex Imaging Services is your complete solution provider. With over 7 decades of experience, we're experts in everything from general contracting to cutting-edge tech solutions. Visit apeximagingservices.com to learn how we can transform your business, increase efficiency, and elevate your brand. Apex Imaging Services. Your vision, our expertise.
it helps me with patience. You have to be patient in all aspects of caregiving. You have to, with a baby, they don't know what they're doing. They're new here. You have to be patient with them. They might act crazy, but they don't know not to act crazy. So you can't just get mad at them. You have to be patient with them. And people in the disability community, they have bad days. I can never imagine what it's like to be in their shoes. So even if like they have a bad day and they're acting different or they're mean to me, like at hospitals, sometimes they're mean to you and you can't take it personally. You just have to have patience. And a lot of people don't have patience, but you have to. In this field, you have to have patience with people.
Would you say that
And it
since
As a mom.
and as a caregiver and assistant and
yes, as everything.
And every role
Everything.
you play
Yeah.
as a wife, everything
virtue.
you do. Yeah.
for sure,
The many hats you wear.
yeah. Would you say becoming a mother has developed your ability to be a more efficient caregiver? Would you say you're a better caregiver now since you've become a mother?
I think so. He's changed my life completely for the better.
Your client or your son?
My baby.
Oh. Fair
My
enough.
client's cool too.
Kind of. Nah, he's great. Okay, you've worked at a hospital setting, right, with the paralysis community, and you've worked at a private organization like the one that we work at.
Right.
Can you talk about the difference between working in a hospital setting versus working in the private sector with the same community?
It's a different thing. Like you in the hospital, you take care of them differently. You have to help them with specific things. It depends on the person you're working with, but you help them with like feeding. I'm not gonna help anyone with feeding here. You help them with getting dressed, changing catheters, stuff like that, like more medical stuff.
More medical
and here is getting them to do more things independently and help them become more independent. And at Casa Colina, you do that if you're working in the morning. At TLC, I worked in the afternoon and evening, so I didn't really work with the physical
rehab part?
therapists. They, at Casa Colina, at TLC, they work with physical therapists for 5 to 6 hours a day. So I did that sometimes, but not all the time. I mostly worked after they got out of therapy.
When you did work with the PT component, can you describe how those things were similar to what happens here, or also how they're different?
It was a lot similar. We assisted them with setups, what they needed, getting them on tables. It was different lifts. We were trained differently in that way, but the things that we're doing were kind of similar. Like we used the RTI bike, we got them on mats, we got them walking sometimes.
Do you feel like the machines and everything that you had, all the equipment you had at Casa, was similar to the chronic care setting that we have here at TPS? In what ways were they different?
We didn't have as much stuff as we have here at the Perfect Step. So we had the RTI bike, we had like an exoskeleton to help people walk. We got them on mats, we got them stretching.
Right.
But
So
I think we have a lot more equipment here.
Tools in the toolbox?
Yeah.
obviously, Casa Colina is all covered by insurance. So how do you feel like that was different in relation to everything that they do for the most part at Casa Colina? They're writing things down. They're writing down prescriptions. They're taking notes of everything. Were you partaking in any of those things?
I would overlook them and see what they're doing. A lot of it was note taking. They had to to see what the progress of what everyone's doing. So it's not all just care for the patient. It was care for the patient and then a lot of paperwork.
Right.
And then insurance only lasts for so long. So once insurance runs out, then they're like, okay, bye. And that's something that I didn't like about working at a hospital is seeing that and seeing people frustrated and just emotional and just not knowing what they're going to do next because their insurance ran out and they're not going to pay for it anymore, and then the hospital has to tell them to leave, and I don't like that.
Yeah. Have you ever had anybody say, "I'm not leaving"?
No. I didn't really deal with that. No.
Yeah. Well, that's got to be something.
But
that's
I've had to
tough
tell
go through.
people.
You've had to tell people.
I've had to tell people this is your last day.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Bet that wasn't fun.
No, I cried.
Oh.
It wasn't. I cried a lot working at a hospital just because it's emotional. Seeing people dealing with the worst and then they don't know what they're going to do after being at the hospital.
It's unfortunate how much that is out of the hands of the hospitals too. And I don't think that people understand that, let's say places similar to Casa Colina, they don't have a whole lot of control of that because of insurance companies, right? So that's unfortunate that's a lot of that is out of their hands in a sense.
It's not what they can't do anything about it for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
Definitely. So, Christie, I want to hear about maybe a little bit about your 5-year plan and your trajectory of your career and where this wants to go. Do you want to be an assistant for the next few years, or where do you see yourself being here at TPS?
I would like to stay at TPS. I love TPS. I was trying to be a nurse, but I had a lot of speed bumps in the way, and now it's just really too expensive to go back because I would have to start from the very beginning, and that's just not logical for me with a child. I love the perfect step. That's why I came back here. It's I've seen so many people just progress and just have hope when they felt like they had no hope left, and it's amazing, and I love it here, and I love the people here, and I love the clients here, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I would love to be a specialist one day. I just have to see what I could do to get to that point, because my education is in something completely different.
We love that. We'd be very lucky to have you as a specialist here. Recently, to kind of go along with all of that, we recently just had our gala event. Our event recently, a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
we had it. And how do you feel like that event impacted your life and what you do as an assistant every day? Because, I mean, sometimes as a job as an assistant, you see different clients every day and a plethora of different clients, but you may not know their stories entirely.
Yeah.
So when you went to this event and you saw these people open up about their stories and be so vulnerable,
Yeah.
how did that make you feel as an assistant or TPS? Did it make you feel like it was rewarding even more? Yeah.
Yes, definitely rewarding working here and helping people. And even if I'm not a specialist, I feel like I'm still like making an impact on people's lives, and it's very rewarding to see people just wanting more for their lives and doing what they can to get to that point.
Absolutely. We wouldn't be able to do the things that we do with our clients without all the assistants, including yourself. You guys play such a big part in us being able to help facilitate some of those changes, and give yourself credit. You are helping them change the course of their life and allowing them to receive hope again. And I think, like Logan said, we would be very lucky to have you as a specialist pretty soon.
Are you or a loved one living with paralysis and searching for a path to recovery and hope? Look no further than The Perfect Step. Our unique exercise-based recovery programs have helped clients with conditions like spinal cord injury, stroke, Parkinson's, and more. With our approach, many clients experience improved function, reduced medication, and even freedom from wheelchairs. But we're not just a program, we're a community of support. You'll meet peers who understand your journey, along with specialists dedicated to your recovery. Visit us today at theperfectstep.com. The Perfect Step, where recovery begins.
So, Christy, can you talk to us about how being a caregiver has changed your perspective on the care that's given in the hospital setting? How is it different when you're able to focus on one individual versus when you have a whole entire client load?
You can't spend as much time with the person that you're caregiving for as opposed to being in a hospital. You have to limit your time. So you need to be able to take care of them properly and fully, but you have to do it in a shorter way so you can get to your next patient.
Do you feel like everything that you're doing then for those patients in that outpatient setting, do you feel like it's all pretty much kind of sped up because you don't have as much time to sit there and do every little small detail thing that you would like to do?
Yes, it's definitely sped up in a hospital, and I've also worked at nursing homes, and it's super sped up there, and it's not, I don't like it. It's sad.
Really? How are nursing homes, how are they different than Casa?
I've only worked at a few just as like an as-needed CNA, and it was a terrible experience for me because I would try to give, because it was a nursing home, so it was elderly people, and they need to be changed. They need to be changed a lot, and nurses are telling you to hurry up, but it's not something you should be hurrying up. You need to wipe them properly. You need to make sure they're clean. You need to make sure they're comfortable. And I feel like a lot of facilities are just rushing people, and then the patients are not taken care of properly, and it's really sad.
So you've been in both the hospital setting, the nursing home setting, in a private home. How would you make the nursing home, the hospital setting, better?
I would employ more CNAs.
And if that wasn't an option, how would you make it more individualistic but also more efficient if you could?
Just more training and not rushing. You have to take care of people. If there's not enough there has to be more CNAs. That's the problem, is there has to be. So it shouldn't be an option or not an option. They should just employ more, because you can't take care of 10 people who need to be changed at the same time. It's not possible.
Definitely. I think that when you're taking care of a plethora of different individuals at the same time, like without you even being cognizant of that, I think the care isn't as quality, because, and it's not even that person's fault. It's just the fact that you can't spend as much of that quality time on that one individual. Let me ask you this. As far as, because you've worked with people that have had lack of cognition, right? People with SCIs, we all know they do not have lack of cognition, typically, if they don't have a brain injury.
Yeah.
You've worked with people with strokes, brain injuries. How is it more difficult with people with lack of cognitive abilities versus somebody with an SCI that still has that cognition?
It's very difficult. You just have to be patient, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
When I first was employed at Casa Colina, we had patients who were violent. We had to be either one-on-one with them, so there was a person caregiving for them, we were called residential technicians, and there had to be someone with them 24 hours a day, because they were impulsive. They didn't know what was going on, and sometimes they were violent. Sometimes they would try to hit us. Sometimes they would smack us. Sometimes they would try to choke us. It was that's what I started with. So it was just something that you have to understand, that it's not their fault, and they're not trying to do this. They just don't know what's going on. So it's a lot more difficult, and it's a lot of getting used to, but you just have to have patience and understanding to what they're dealing with and what they can't understand and stuff like that.
How was the communication aspect amongst you and the other caregivers or individuals who had the same job roles or job duties as you? For me and Logan to be the most efficient trainers that we can be, if I have a client and Logan is going to cover that client who he normally doesn't have, I'm going to obviously communicate with him things we've been working on, things that client likes, things they don't like. Was there any of that for you guys?
For some people, yes, and for other people, no. So just also have to get to know the people that you're working with, and if they're not as involved in care, then you just have to get to know your client more and just do it yourself. And because some people don't care as much as other people do. Some people, like I said, are there to do a job, and some people are there because they have a passion to care for these people.
Do you think that's a component that could be changed to make that job more efficient?
I don't know. I would hope so. I think it's hard to, when you're hiring people, to see if people are putting on their best show when they're interviewing. So you don't know that these people might just be doing this as a job.
And like you said, with limited ability to hire people as caregivers, because there's not so many people, it sounds like, applying to be a caregiver at this time, or not even just that, but applying to be a CNA, maybe even. Seems like that field isn't as filled as maybe it should be, so people can receive more quality care. Do you feel like there can be more resources for individuals that are going through those kind of careers or those kind of job paths that educate them more on what this job is going to be like before they step into that job role? Because I think maybe people sign up for something that they're unsure what it's going to be like.
So I would say whatever community you're working for, you should look it up. So research it. You're not always trained in specific fields when you're going to get your certification. So if you're going to a different field than what you were trained in, then you should look things up and research about it, and maybe take extra courses on people's bodies and how they work. And if you really care, then you should do stuff like that.
What has been your best educational resource, whether it was a podcast, a book, or anything that helped you prepare for those jobs?
Honestly, I would just say experience, just getting thrown in there, not knowing what to do, and just getting to know people and working with them and helping them and doing that for so long, you just kind of, if you really care, you know what to do.
Right.
For somebody who's been in the field so long and you've learned all those things, like you said, the hard way by getting thrown in, what is something that, if it's somebody's first day on the job of being a caretaker, what do they need to know?
Just, I would say, know if you're doing the right thing, like if this is what you want to do. That's what I would say. If you're going into a job as a CNA or as a caregiver, know that that's what you want to do. Don't just, as I've said before, don't do it for a job, because you can work any other job and get paid the same amount. Know what you're going into. Know that you're taking care of human beings. Know that you're taking care of their well-being, their mental health. Like, you're there to take care of them, to try to make them better, to try to get them motivated. Know that you're there for that, not for any other reason. And if you're there for any other reason, then don't do it.
And from a literal sense of, like, doing the job efficiently, what advice would you give on that sense?
Just to get to know the client that you're working with, because every pair is different, every quad is different, every TBI is different, every stroke client's different, Parkinson's, anything, cerebral palsy. Everyone is different and everyone prefers different things. Get to know them, get to know their bodies, get to know what they need, and do that for them.
And you mentioned if all of those things that you mentioned for the first question didn't align and that wasn't why they were doing it, they should do something else. What if it's a loved one, parent, husband, wife who got thrown into that situation? How would you advise them to adapt to their new circumstance?
I would just say to stick with them. If you love them, stick with them and try to make it work. And if you need someone to help you, then get someone to help you, because some people need that help, and for their own well-being too. Like, always be able to take care of yourself, and if you can't take care of yourself, then get someone to help you with it.
So, Christy, what is one simple tip or piece of advice that you would give somebody who has just entered the paralysis community?
I would just tell them to research everything about being paralyzed, because we don't know. If we're just normal, random people just on the street, we don't know what it's like to be paralyzed. So these people didn't know that they were going to have an injury, an accident, whatever happened to them. They didn't know that, and they don't know what is going on with their body. And a lot of doctors and nurses and CNAs are not trained specifically to spinal cord injuries, so they don't have all the information to tell them. So I would say research it. Join communities. There's a lot of community within the paralysis community. There's a lot of people who have dealt with it for years and years and years that can help them with what they're experiencing. And I would say community is the most important thing.
Do you feel like you've seen other people that have been suffering with a disability for a good amount of years kind of take somebody else under their wing that has been pretty freshly injured?
Definitely.
Yeah.
There's definitely so many clients that we have personally that just are close with one another because they're experiencing the same thing, and it's they're helping each other out with things that they might have not known, or things that they can't talk to their friends or family about because they're not experiencing what they're experiencing, but the people in our community are, and they're helping each other out, and it's a really great thing. And I think that's the most important thing, is community.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we have a great community here.
Yeah.
And I think that so many people here are reinventing their life recently. We've been working and we've been talking about that a lot lately at TPS, or people reinventing their life, Christy. Yes. What is one way you have seen somebody reinvent their life? It can be in any realm. It doesn't have to do with anything with paralysis. It could be whatever.
Well, within the paralysis community, I would just say people who have lost all hope they come here and they're able to stand, and I've seen people just standing, and it seems like it was for the first time. Maybe they weren't able to stand in the hospital, or they didn't get them standing, and people have stood and they're like crying and emotional, and their family members are too, and that's really touching. They're trying to be better, and they're trying to just do better for themselves, and it's an amazing thing to experience with them.
Love that. You heard it, folks. Quality advice from Christie. Christie, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. You've just been a blessing to have on and sharing your knowledge and expertise. It's amazing to come from somebody that's been doing it for so long, and you wore so many different hats. So kudos to you for being a mother, being a wife, being a caregiver, being a CNA, being a plethora of other things, and staying professional at what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for thinking I'm important enough to share my information.
Absolutely.
You definitely are. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did.
If you found today's episode to be valuable, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, and feel free to leave a review by clicking the link in the description below.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or topics you'd like for us to cover in upcoming episodes, you can go to our website under the tab Pathways to Healing and fill out the form.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another engaging conversation giving insight into the paralysis community.
Until then, keep inspiring, stay resilient, and roll on.
These are your hosts, Cody Norman
and Logan Frye,
signing off. And welcome to Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We are your hosts, Cody Norman
and Logan Frye, paralysis recovery specialist at the Perfect Step, also known as TPS.
We are not doctors and are not prescribing anything, as this podcast is for informational purposes and should not be considered legal advice.
We are, however, sharing knowledge and experience that we have gained from working for years with clients in the paralysis community.
The guests on this podcast will include either experts in their respective fields or individuals sharing their unique experiences with paralysis.
Suggestions and advice that we share may affect each person differently, as not one injury or diagnosis is the exact same.
We are hopeful that the outreach of this podcast will allow us to give help and guidance for individuals suffering from paralysis.
We understand that this spread of knowledge is important and takes an entire community coming together.
Because of this, we would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors who have made this possible.